Imagine a corporate kingdom where the light of ambition shines brightly, and a ruthless businesswoman rules with an iron fist. In every meeting, her cutting voice and sharp criticisms resound like thunder, devastating anyone who fails to live up to her expectations. But what you cannot imagine is that, after a brutal public humiliation, the employee targeted by this storm will transform pain into power and challenge everything you thought about success and revenge. Prepare for a shocking twist that will captivate your attention and change your view of the true meaning of strength and resilience. Don't miss the moment that will leave everyone stunned and redefine the fate of these two very different worlds. Make sure you are already subscribed to my channel. It helps me a lot to bring you more stories like this. An introduction to the corporate world. In an imposing building in the heart of the city, with gleaming glass that reflected the blue sky and the frenetic pace of the streets below, was the headquarters of the renowned company Orientech. This was the place where career dreams were made or broken, where innovation flourished under pressure, and where only the strongest survived the demands of the marketplace. At the top of this organization, occupying a large room with panoramic views of the city, sat Veronica Alvarez, the powerful CEO of Orientech. Veronica was a woman who exuded authority in every move. Her piercing gaze, always fixed on her goal, left no room for doubt. With her impeccably groomed black hair and a fashion sense that exuded power, Veronica was the definition of a ruthless leader. Known for her tough approach and intolerant attitude toward mistakes, she had transformed Orientech into one of the most respected companies in the technology industry, but at the cost of a work environment where fear and tension were constant. Veronica was an almost mythological figure within the company, respected by some, feared by many. Her meetings were legendary, known for bringing out the best in each employee or, in some cases, revealing their weaknesses. For her, work was an arena where only the strongest, the most dedicated, had a place. Her approach was tough, but Veronica believed that this was the only way to ensure success in a competitive world. Among the many employees at Orientech, there was one woman who, despite her modest position, stood out for her quiet, tireless dedication. Isabella Vasquez was not the type to stand out in meetings or seek the spotlight. Instead, she was known for her unwavering work ethic and her ability to consistently deliver results. Isabella had a quiet, almost invisible presence, but those who paid attention could see the passion in her brown eyes that were always focused on the work. She didn't need public praise or recognition to know that she was doing a good job. Her motivation came from something deeper, from an unshakable belief that her efforts were worthwhile. While others were dazzled by the glitz and glamour of high technology, Isabella focused on the minute details, ensuring that each task was carried out to perfection. Behind this determination was a story of challenges and overcoming. Isabella had grown up in a simple neighborhood, where nothing was easy. Her humble parents had taught her the value of hard work and honesty. It was this upbringing that shaped her, that made her the committed professional that everyone at Orientech knew. Although few knew the sacrifices she made to be there, every day, ready to face whatever came her way. To Veronica, Isabella was just another employee. She appreciated the results Isabella delivered, but she never paid much attention to her. After all, Veronica was too busy, focused on strategies, big contracts, and the constant search for the next big breakthrough that would keep Orientech at the forefront. In her world, those who didn't stand out were simply pieces on a big board, necessary but easily replaceable. But fate, with its ability to turn the tables at the most unexpected moments, was already beginning to chart a different path for these two women. While Veronica continued to lead with an iron fist, Isabella, silently, was about to face a challenge that would change her life forever. And little did they know that their destinies would intertwine in a way no one could have foreseen, transforming not only their careers, but their very lives. This was the beginning of a story of overcoming challenges and an unexpected turn of events, where power and humility would collide in a battle of wills. A story where viewers would be invited to delve into a world where the superficial shine of large corporations would hide profound life lessons. A narrative that would show that sometimes it is in adversity that we find our true strength. The unexpected confrontation. It was an ordinary morning at Orientech, but the atmosphere was heavier than usual. Tuesday meetings with Veronica Alvarez always carried a special, almost palpable tension. In that meeting room with glass walls that opened onto a busy hallway, the silence was interrupted only by the sound of keyboards, As employees waited for the meeting to begin, the air seemed charged with expectations and concerns, and everyone knew that something big was coming. Veronica entered the room with her usual confidence, the heels of her shoes echoing on the marble floor. Her gaze was steady, almost cutting, and everyone sat up straighter in their chairs, trying to prepare themselves for what was to come. She always began her meetings with a detailed analysis of the weekly reports, and her every word was measured with surgical precision. Everyone knew that a mistake, no matter how small, could set off a firestorm. As Veronica studied the data projected on the screen, her brows furrowed slightly, a subtle but unmistakable sign that something was not right. She looked around the room, her eyes flickering over the faces of the employees until they settled on Isabella Vasquez. Time seemed to slow down in that moment, and everyone's breathing became heavier. "Isabella," Veronica began, her voice firm but with a note of disapproval that made Isabella's heart race. "I expected more from you." The entire room held its breath. The focus of the meeting instantly shifted to Isabella, who was sitting on the corner of the table, surprised to have been called upon. Veronica continued, now with a more severe tone. "Your department's results are below expectations. This is unacceptable." Isabella felt the weight of everyone's gaze on her. The atmosphere, which was already tense, was now almost unbearable. Veronica was not just criticizing, she was exposing Isabella in front of everyone, something that was rare but devastating. The businesswoman began to list a series of failures and delays, each word filled with coldness and contempt. For anyone else, this public humiliation could be the final blow, but Isabella, with her inner strength, remained calm. Her face did not reveal the pain she felt inside. She was embarrassed, of course, but there was something in Isabella that kept her from breaking down. Instead of defending herself or arguing, she listened attentively, absorbing each criticism, each word, as if she were internalizing it in a different way. Isabella's colleagues, all equally uncomfortable, avoided making eye contact with her. No one dared to speak, and the atmosphere seemed to have been frozen by Veronica's severity. With each harsh sentence Veronica made, Isabella simply nodded her head, showing that she was listening and that she understood. But deep down, she knew that this situation was not an end, but perhaps a new beginning. When Veronica finally finished her critique, the room was filled with a silence that seemed to last an eternity. The embarrassment was visible on everyone's faces, except Isabella's. She stood up straight, took a deep breath, and with a firm and serene gaze, thanked Veronica for the feedback. Her voice, despite the tension of the moment, came out calm and clear, like a breeze in the middle of a storm. "I'll work on it, Veronica. Thank you for pointing out these issues," Isabella said, without a single tremor in her voice. Veronica, perhaps surprised by Isabella's calm and professional reaction, simply nodded and moved on to the next item on the agenda. But inside her, a part of her was still digesting what had just happened. She was used to seeing reactions of fear, justifications, or even tears. But Isabella's serenity was something that intrigued her, although she didn't want to admit it. The meeting continued, but what everyone witnessed at that moment would be etched in their memories. Isabella left the room with the same posture she had entered, without lowering her head, even though she knew she had been the target of a public humiliation. For her, that criticism was not the end of her journey, but a stumbling block that she knew she could overcome. What no one there knew, not even Veronica, was that criticism would be the catalyst for a transformation that no one could have foreseen. And so, as the Orientec corridors returned to their frenetic pace, something had changed. A new spark had been lit in Isabella, and that meeting, which seemed like a moment of defeat, would be remembered as the beginning of an unexpected turnaround. Isabella Vasquez's story was just beginning, and the next chapters would be written with determination, courage, and above all, the strength of those who do not let adversity bring them down. The decision to fight. When Isabella Vasquez left the meeting room that day, something inside her had changed. The public humiliation she had suffered could have broken anyone, but instead, it lit a flame in her heart. As she walked through the halls of Orientec, still feeling the eyes of her colleagues on her back, Isabella made a decision that would change the course of her life. She would fight. When she reached her desk, Isabella felt the weight of Veronica's words echoing in her mind. The harsh criticism and the way she was exposed in front of everyone could have fueled resentment and discouragement. However, Isabella was different. She saw pain as a powerful fuel, something that could drive her to achieve something greater. What would have made her falter was transformed into an unshakable determination. Isabella began to reflect on her role in the company, her skills, and most importantly, on what she could do to turn that situation around. She knew that simply continuing to do the basics would not be enough. She needed to go further to prove not only to Veronica, but to herself, that she was capable of something extraordinary. It was then that an idea began to form in her mind, an idea that could not only transform her career, but also revolutionize Orientech. In the days that followed, Isabella dedicated herself body and soul to developing an innovative project. She knew that achieving something great would require much more than just a simple effort. So while the other employees left the office at the end of the day, Isabella remained at her desk, focused on her plan. The nights that she had previously spent relaxing at home were now filled with hours and hours of intense work. The weekends, which had previously been moments of leisure, became opportunities to delve even deeper into her project. Her apartment, which had previously been a place of rest, now became her second office. Papers were scattered across the dining table, charts and notes covered the walls, and the light from her computer illuminated the room during the early hours of the morning. Isabella was determined to turn every criticism she heard into a brick to build something new, something that could change the future of the company. Every detail of the project was meticulously thought out. Isabella reviewed the company's data, analyzed the market, studied new technologies, and sought inspiration from leading companies in the sector. She knew she couldn't afford to make mistakes. Every step had to be carefully calculated. The pressure was enormous, but instead of feeling discouraged, Isabella felt energized. She was motivated by something bigger than her desire for success. She wanted to prove that the humiliation she suffered wouldn't define her, but rather how she responded to it. Days turned into weeks, and Isabella began to see the fruits of her hard work. The project was taking shape, and she could visualize how each piece fit together perfectly. Her skills, previously underestimated, now shone through in every aspect of the project. And the more she worked, the clearer it became to Isabella that she was creating something special, something that could truly transform Orientech and impress even the demanding Veronica Alvarez. Despite all her efforts, Isabella kept the project a secret. She knew she needed to be fully prepared before presenting it. The challenges were great, but her determination was even greater. Isabella did not let fatigue or difficulties shake her. She was on a personal mission to show that, even after being humiliated, she could rise up and triumph. So night after night, Isabella continued to work tirelessly, driven by an inner strength that seemed to have no limits. Every lonely night, every sacrifice weekend, it was all part of her greater plan. She was building something that everyone would soon see, something that would make it clear that Isabella Vasquez was not just any employee, but a woman capable of turning adversity into success. And as the project neared completion, Isabella knew that the moment of her big presentation was drawing ever closer. She had made her choice that day in the boardroom. She had chosen to fight, and now she was about to show the world what that decision really meant. The businesswoman's contempt. Veronica Alvarez was the kind of person who exuded authority in every gesture, every word. At Orientech, her name was synonymous with power, and she was certain that no one would dare question her decisions. Her arrogance, built over years in charge, was so thick that she believed herself invulnerable. To Veronica, the company was a reflection of her own greatness, and any deviation from her vision was considered a personal affront. Even after the episode in the meeting, where she publicly humiliated Isabella, Veronica paid no more attention to the employee. For her, it was just another day at work, and Isabella was just another person who didn't live up to her expectations. Veronica saw the world through a lens distorted by arrogance, where her past success justified any current attitude. She believed that her way of leading, although rigid, was the only one that could keep the company on top. While Isabella immersed herself in her work, tirelessly improving the innovative project that would change everything, Veronica remained immersed in her own bubble. She didn't notice the clear signs that the strategy that had once been effective was beginning to wear thin. The market was changing, new trends were emerging, and technology was evolving at a rapid pace. But Veronica remained oblivious to all of this, believing that the status quo was unshakable. In the company's corridors, whispers began to intensify. Employees, attentive to the transformations that were occurring in the sector, noticed the disconnect between Veronica's leadership and the real needs of Orientech. But Veronica was too busy maintaining her image of power to notice. She surrounded herself with people who reinforced her ideas, never questioning her decisions, and this further shielded her from any perception of change. The businesswoman focused her efforts on appearances, on maintaining absolute control over every aspect of the company. Endless meetings about marketing strategies that were already outdated, business plans that ignored new trends, and decisions based more on ego than on market reality. Veronica saw herself as a visionary leader, but in reality, she was increasingly disconnected from reality. Meanwhile, Isabella worked in silence, attentively observing the changes around her. She saw opportunities where Veronica saw obstacles. Each night, while the businesswoman retired to her mansion, secure in her domain, Isabella remained in the office, shaping her project to align with the future she knew was coming. However, Veronica remained blind to all this. In her mind, Isabella was just an ordinary employee who had learned her lesson in the previous meeting. The businesswoman believed that the humiliation had put Isabella in her place, never imagining that, in fact, she had awakened a force that was about to transform the company. She couldn't see beyond her own pride, and it kept her from noticing the subtle changes that were happening around her. The signs were everywhere. The development team suggesting new approaches that were quickly dismissed, the market reports that showed a clear need for innovation, and even the conversations with employees who were beginning to question whether Veronica's leadership was still the right fit. But Veronica ignored it all, focusing only on maintaining her position of power and the image of success she had built over the years. With each passing day, the businesswoman grew deeper into her own illusion of invincibility. For her, absolute control was all that mattered, and anything that threatened that vision was immediately dismissed. She didn't realize that she was isolating herself in a fortress built by her own ego, while real opportunities went unnoticed. And so Veronica continued her journey, immersed in her arrogance, without realizing that, while she remained firm in her old convictions, a significant change was approaching, brought about by the very person she underestimated the most. The businesswoman had no idea that the future of Orientech was no longer in her hands, but in the hands of Isabella, who was silently preparing to surprise everyone with the power of her resilience and innovation. The day of the big presentation. The big day finally arrived. It was a sunny morning, but within the walls of Orientech, the atmosphere was one of pure tension. The imposing and spacious meeting room was filled with an energy that mixed curiosity and apprehension. All the members of the board were present, taking their places around the long glass table. There was an almost sacred silence in the air, as if everyone was aware that something significant was about to happen. Isabella Vasquez, the employee who had spent weeks working tirelessly on her project, was about to face the most decisive moment of her career. She had prepared herself like never before, putting all her knowledge, experience, and heart into every detail of the presentation. That morning, as she walked through the hallways towards the meeting room, she felt the weight of responsibility, but also an unexpected calm. There was something in her face that suggested determination, a sparkle in her eyes that did not go unnoticed by her colleagues who watched her with silent respect. Inside the room, the board of directors was restless. There were rumors about what Isabella was about to present, but no one knew for sure what to expect. Some looked at each other, exchanging whispers and guesses about what might be coming, but everyone shared the same curiosity. Could this employee, so discreet and reserved, really have something innovative to present? Veronica Alvarez, the businesswoman who led Orientech with an iron fist, entered the room with her usual aura of authority. Her high heels echoed on the floor, and her upright posture conveyed the confidence of someone who believed she had everything under control. She walked to her place at the head of the table, casting a quick, cold glance at Isabella. For Veronica, this was just another ordinary day, another presentation that she already expected to be mediocre. She couldn't imagine that this young employee could actually bring anything of value to the table. As the last members of the board took their seats, Isabella stood in front of the large screen, where her project was about to be displayed. She took a deep breath, feeling her nervousness mix with excitement. She knew that this moment was crucial, not only for her career, but also to prove to herself that the humiliation she had suffered could be transformed into something great. The meeting room was plunged into an expectant silence. All eyes were on Isabella, who was holding the remote control tightly. The natural light that entered through the large windows mixed with the brightness of the screen, creating an environment that seemed almost surreal. Isabella could feel the weight of expectation in every glance fixed in her direction. Veronica, still immersed in her arrogance, maintained an expression of disguised boredom. For her, this presentation was just another formality. In her mind, Isabella had no chance of impressing the board. Veronica believed that her own strategies, tried and tested over the years, were unbeatable. She sat back in her chair, crossing her arms, ready to watch what she assumed would be a failed attempt to impress. But when Isabella began to speak, something changed. There was a confidence in her voice, a clarity in her words that immediately captured the attention of everyone in the room. Her presentation was more than just a simple blueprint. It was a vision of the future, a proposal that defied convention and presented creative solutions to the challenges Orientech faced. Every slide, every chart was meticulously crafted, showing Isabella's deep understanding of the problems and, more importantly, the opportunities. As the presentation progressed, the boardroom, which had previously been merely curious, was now fully engaged. The board, which had initially been passively listening, began to take notes, their faces showing signs of genuine interest. It was clear that what Isabella was presenting was not just good, it was exceptional. Veronica, who had maintained a posture of disdain until then, began to feel uncomfortable. She could tell the board members were impressed, something that didn't happen often. The businesswoman who had always controlled the narrative within Orientech now saw that narrative slipping through her fingers. She leaned forward, her expression hardening as she realized she had seriously underestimated Isabella. Isabella, for her part, continued to speak with a calm and confidence that surprised even herself. She knew she was winning everyone's attention, including Veronica. With each argument she presented, with each innovative solution she highlighted, Isabella felt the support of the board growing. And then when she reached the end of her presentation, she concluded with a bold proposal, something that could not only transform the company, but also put it ahead of its competitors. The silence that followed the end of the presentation was deafening. No one knew exactly what to say. The board was open-mouthed, and even Veronica, for a moment, lost her composure. She couldn't believe what had just happened. Isabella, the same employee she had humiliated weeks ago, had just challenged her authority with a brilliant presentation. The room, which had previously been filled with anticipation, was now filled with a new energy, a mix of surprise, admiration, and, for Veronica, a feeling she rarely experienced: doubt. What had seemed like a simple presentation turned into a turning point, a moment when everyone realized that things at Orientech would never be the same again. The impact of the innovative project. When Isabella concluded her presentation, the conference room, which had previously been filled with murmurs and curious glances, fell into a deep silence. It was as if time had stopped, and everyone in the room needed a few seconds to process what they had just witnessed. The atmosphere was charged with an almost palpable tension, but it wasn't the kind of tension that precedes a critique. It was the tension that precedes a revelation. Isabella had just presented a project that not only defied expectations, but also offered a completely new vision for the future of Orientech. Every word she had spoken, every slide she had shown, had been carefully planned to make the greatest possible impact. And the impact was overwhelming. Her vision was clear, innovative, and full of strategic solutions that directly addressed the problems the company was facing, but that few dared to mention openly. The board of directors, made up of experienced men and women who had seen it all in their careers, was impressed. But more than that, they were captivated by the passion and clarity with which Isabella presented her ideas. It was as if, suddenly, all the solutions that had seemed distant and unattainable were there, within their reach. Veronica Alvarez, who until then had maintained a rigid and impassive expression, could no longer hide the surprise that now took over her face. The businesswoman, known for her relentless stance, was faced with a situation she had not foreseen. She, who had always believed she had absolute control over the company's management, now saw her position being challenged by an employee she herself had underestimated. The board members began to exchange glances with one another, whispering brief comments, as if trying to digest what they had just witnessed. They knew they were facing something big, something that could truly change the course of Orientech. Questions began to arise, not in the sense of criticism, but in order to better understand what Isabella had proposed. "Can this really work?" asked one of the directors, breaking the silence with a voice that mixed skepticism and hope. Isabella, who had prepared every detail of her presentation, answered confidently. She explained how her ideas could be implemented, detailing the necessary steps and the expected results. Her explanation was so convincing that the board members, previously divided about the future of the company, now began to see a new possibility. "This is exactly what we need," commented another director, this time with a confidence that surprised even him. The conversation in the room began to change. What had once been a simple meeting to listen to a presentation had now become a heated discussion about the future of Orientech. And at the center of this discussion was Isabella, an employee whose name, until recently, many did not even know, but who had now become the center of attention. Veronica, feeling the pressure mounting, tried to regain control. She asked sharp questions, trying to find flaws in Isabella's project. But with each answer she received, Veronica realized that her own strategy was becoming obsolete. Isabella's ideas not only responded to the company's current needs, but also opened doors to a future that Veronica had never considered. The businesswoman began to feel something she had not felt for a long time: insecurity. For the first time in years, she found herself in a position where her power was being questioned, not because of incompetence, but because a more modern and innovative vision was being presented. Isabella, for her part, maintained her composure. She knew that this was the moment of her life, the moment she had worked so hard for. Veronica might be powerful, but in that room at that moment, Isabella was the one in control. The meeting continued with heated discussions. Some board members began to wonder if it wasn't time to adopt a new approach, to embrace the future rather than cling to old practices. Isabella's words echoed in their minds, and the idea that she could be the key to Orientech's survival and growth began to solidify. The impact of Isabella's innovative project was immediate and profound. She had achieved the impossible, transforming a room of skeptical people accustomed to the status quo into one filled with hope and determination. They began to question not only their past strategies, but also what it would take to ensure the company's future success. By the end of the meeting, it was clear that Isabella's ideas would not only be considered, but potentially adopted as Orientech's new direction. What had seemed a bleak and uncertain future now held a glimmer of promise, and Isabella, a humble and determined employee, had become the center of that transformation. And as everyone stood, ready to discuss the next steps, Isabella allowed herself a small smile. She had done more than prove her worth. She had shown that with dedication and courage, it was possible to change the course of history, not only for herself, but for everyone around her. The clash of the titans. The conference room, which had only recently witnessed Isabella's brilliant presentation, was now filled with an almost palpable tension. Veronica, the powerful businesswoman known for her ruthlessness, realized that her authority was being seriously challenged by the young employee. The gleam in the eyes of the board, which had previously applauded her decisions without question, was now focused on Isabella, who had emerged as a new force within Orientech. Veronica, feeling the pressure, tried to discredit Isabella's project. She began to question every detail, trying to undermine the trust that Isabella had built in those decisive minutes. With a firm but slightly trembling voice, Veronica raised questions about the financial viability of the project, the team's ability to execute the ideas, and even Isabella's experience in leading such a significant change. But Isabella did not let herself be shaken. She knew that this was the most important moment of her career, the moment when she needed to defend her work with all her strength. With the same serenity that had kept her firm during the public humiliation, Isabella responded to each attack with solid arguments, based on research, data, and a clear vision of how Orientech could evolve. The debate between the two intensified. Veronica, who had always been the undisputed authority, now found herself in a duel of ideas that she never expected to face. Each time she tried to disqualify the project, Isabella responded with a firmness that made it clear that she would not back down. The board watched everything in silence, observing the confrontation between the old and new generations of the company. As the discussion continued, Veronica's confidence began to waver. She realized that her criticisms, once so effective in silencing any opposition, were not having any effect. What had previously been an attempt to reassert her control now became a desperate fight to maintain her place at the top. But each new attack by Veronica only served to further expose the weaknesses of her own approach, which was beginning to seem outdated in the face of Isabella's fresh and innovative ideas. Finally, the duel came to a head when Isabella, in a calm and firm voice, declared that her project was not just a vision for Orientech's future, but an urgent necessity. If we continue down the same path, she said, we risk becoming irrelevant in the marketplace. We need innovation, we need collaboration, and we need it now. The room fell silent once more. Veronica, speechless, realized that she had lost the battle, not because she was any less capable, but because Isabella had demonstrated an undeniable truth. The company needed to change, and she was no longer the person to lead that change. Veronica's reflection and change. After the meeting, Veronica retreated to her office, her heart heavy with the conflicting emotions that fought within her. Throughout her career, she had prided herself on being a strong leader, someone who was not afraid to make tough decisions and impose her will. But now, for the first time, she was forced to question whether her approach was still the right one. Sitting in her chair, Veronica looked out the window of her office, reflecting on what had happened. The image of Isabella, defending her project with unwavering determination, would not leave her mind. She realized that in her relentless pursuit of power and control, she had distanced herself from something fundamental: respect and appreciation of talent. Veronica began to understand that true leadership is not based solely on authority and strength, but also on recognizing and nurturing the qualities of others. Isabella's vision had shown her that the future of Orientech depended not only on maintaining the status quo, but on embracing innovation and allowing new voices to be heard. For the first time in years, Veronica felt vulnerable, but this vulnerability brought with it a new clarity. Perhaps instead of fighting against the new, she should learn to work with it. Perhaps it was time for a change. Isabella's achievement. A few days after the meeting, Orientech's board of directors called another meeting, this time with a single goal: to acknowledge Isabella's vision and discuss the next steps to implement her project. Isabella entered the room with a mix of nervousness and hope. Although she knew she had made an impression, she was still unsure how the board would react. But her fears were quickly dispelled. One by one, the board members praised her presentation, highlighting the clarity and innovation of her ideas. They were convinced that Isabella not only had the ability to lead the project, but that her vision could be the path for the company's future. Veronica was present at the meeting, but this time her demeanor was different. Instead of her usual arrogance, there was a newfound humility. When it was her turn to speak, she looked directly at Isabella and in a surprisingly soft voice said, "I recognize that I underestimated your talent and vision. Your dedication and innovation are exactly what this company needs. I am here to offer my full support to your project." These words marked a turning point for Isabella, not only because her work was recognized, but because they came from the person who had challenged her the most. With the support of the board of directors and even Veronica, Isabella began to work on implementing her project. The change within Orientech was rapid and profound. Under Isabella's leadership, the company began to adopt a culture of collaboration and innovation. The previously rigid and controlled environment became more open and receptive to new ideas. Veronica, who had previously feared losing her power, discovered that she had gained something much more valuable: the respect of her team and the opportunity to grow as a leader. Isabella, in turn, became a symbol of transformation within the company. Her story, from an underappreciated employee to a recognized visionary, inspired others to dedicate themselves and believe in their own ideas. And so, Orientech entered a new era, guided by a leadership that understood that true power lies not in controlling, but in inspiring and valuing the talent of others. The future of leading ladies. The echoes of Orientech's great transformation were still reverberating through the company's corridors when Veronica and Isabella began to forge new paths, now intertwined by an event that would change their lives and the company forever. An atmosphere of curiosity and anticipation hung over all the employees, who were eager to see how these two women, so different in their styles and approaches, would develop. Veronica Alvarez, who had previously been an undisputed authority figure, began to adopt a more collaborative posture. Her experience and knowledge accumulated over the years were undeniable, but now she realized that true power came not only from imposing her vision, but from the ability to listen and work with others. With a new sense of purpose, Veronica began to get involved in initiatives to mentor new talent within the company. She used her skills to guide and support those who were just starting out on their journeys, sharing her experiences and helping to shape a new generation of leaders. The contrast between Veronica's old leadership style and her new approach was striking. Employees who had once feared her imposing presence now found her a source of support and wisdom. Meetings became more open and productive, and Veronica, who had once been all about control, was now invested in cultivating an environment of growth and mutual respect. Meanwhile, Isabella Vasquez, who had risen from the ashes of humiliation to become a rising star, dove headfirst into her groundbreaking project. With the backing of management and Veronica's unexpected support, she began implementing her revolutionary ideas. Isabella was determined to turn the vision she had outlined into reality and ensure that Oriontech not only adapted to market changes, but led those changes. Isabella's dedication did not go unnoticed. Her ability to inspire and lead a team with a clear, positive vision quickly earned the admiration of everyone around her. She implemented new strategies that not only improved efficiency and innovation, but also fostered a culture of collaboration and creativity. The company began to see impressive results, and employees were more engaged and motivated than ever. The dynamic between Veronica and Isabella, once marked by rivalry and tension, was now one of partnership and mutual growth. They learned to complement each other, combining Veronica's experience and wisdom with Isabella's innovation and passion. Together, they helped shape a new vision for Oriontech, one that valued both tradition and innovation. The interplay between the two protagonists, each with their own strengths and weaknesses, created a balance that benefited the company as a whole. Their challenges and achievements became a source of inspiration for all employees. Their journey symbolized the idea that sometimes the greatest changes and greatest successes come when we learn to work together, even when our approaches and perspectives differ. As time went on, curiosity about Veronica and Isabella's future continued to grow. Employees watched closely as these two women, once adversaries, were now building a legacy of innovation and collaboration. Their story became a testament to how adversity can be turned into opportunity, and how true leadership involves the ability to adapt and evolve. Oriontech's future was now in confident, visionary hands. And so, with Veronica and Isabella leading the company into new horizons, everyone in the organization was eager to see what new adventures and achievements awaited these two extraordinary women, whose destinies had intertwined in ways no one could have predicted.